Hello, bienvenidos. My name is Greco, el teacher bilingüe. Today, get ready to embark on a thrilling time traveling adventure as we delve into the fascinating history of the English language. Buckle up, because we're about to journey from the mysterious days of ancient tribes to the grandeur of medieval knights, all the way through the present century. As a side note, my videos have a bilingual perspective, meaning I speak English and a little bit of Spanish here and there. But since this video is about the history of this beautiful language, English, there is no Spanish today. O tal vez un poquito nada más. Empecemos. Let's start by exploring the early years of English, from the 1st to the 4th century. Picture this. It is the 1st century. Romans are everywhere, conquering lands, building roads, and introducing fancy things like ingenious toilets and togas. But wait, who are those Germanic tribes sneaking around? Ah yes, it's the early Germanic speakers, whispering to each other in the forest and fields. Now, those guys were just like us, trying to communicate, but without the convenience of Google Translate. Can you imagine trying to explain your craving for pizza without using the word pizza? It must have been a linguistic challenge. Fast forward to the 3rd century, and oh boy, things are heating up. The Roman Empire is having a party. But what about those Germanic tribes? Oh, they decided to crush it. Yep, they marched in, bringing their languages and cultures with them. Suddenly, Latin and Germanic languages are mingling, just like at a multicultural potluck dinner. Now, let's talk about the 4th century, a time of big changes. The Romans are getting cozy with the Germanic tribes. And guess what? Latin is starting to sound a bit different. It's like Latin is trying out a new outfit, experimenting with Germanic influences. The result? Early Germanic dialects mixing and mingling with Latin, paving the way for Old English. Oh, and speaking of changes, let's not forget the chaos that the Huns brought. They were like that unexpected guest at a party who shows up and flips the tables. Literally. The Huns invasions pushed Germanic tribes into new territories, mixing languages and cultures like a giant linguistic stew. Let's keep exploring. Now, let's focus on what happened from the 5th to the 11th century. Picture this. It is the 5th century, and the Roman Empire has left the building. Literally. But fear not. Our Germanic friends, the Angles, Saxons, and Jutes, are swooping in, ready to leave their linguistic mark. It's like the ultimate language party crashers, and boy are they shaking things up. Now, in the 6th century, we got King Arthur and his knights, embarking on legendary quests. And guess what? They're not just battling dragons, no. They're also juggling vowels and consonants. Old English is emerging, and it's as mysterious and adventurous as Merlin's magical spells. Fast forward now to the 8th century, and we're in for a real treat. The Vikings have arrived. These seafaring warriors are bringing a whole new vocabulary to the table. And suddenly, Old Norse words are mingling with Old English. It's like a linguistic Viking invasion, but instead of swords, they're armed with words. It is the 9th century now, a time of kings, castles, and epic battles. But also a time of Alfred the Great, the language superhero of the Middle Ages. Alfred's like the OG language nerd of the 9th century. This guy was not your average king, oh no. He wasn't just sitting on his throne, sipping tea and munching on medieval snacks. No way, Jose. Alfred was a multitasking monarch of his time, ruling the kingdom by day and translating everything he can get his hands on, from religious texts to historical chronicles by night. Old English is getting a makeover, and it's looking more polished than ever because Alfred's efforts contributed to the standardization of Old English, making it a more unified and recognizable language. Now, it is the 10th century, where monasteries are buzzing with monks, quills, and scrolls. Latin is still the language of the educated, but Old English is starting to flex its muscles. Imagine monks scribbling away, sipping on herbal tea, and debating the finer points of grammar. It's like a medieval spelling bee, but with more chanting and robes. Norman conquest, anyone? It is the 11th century, and England is like a giant game of musical thrones. King Harold Godwinson takes the English throne. But wait, here come the Normans, led by William the Conqueror. And they're not just any Normans. No, they're armed with baguettes, berets, and an impeccable taste for cheese. Yes, it is the French invasion. The Normans bring with them a trove of fancy French words like beef and pork, which replaced the humble English words like cow and pig. It's like they're staging a culinary coup d'etat in the kitchen. Suddenly, everyone's speaking in food code. However, there's a silver lining here. This language mashup gave birth to Middle English. Imagine Old English and Norman French doing a linguistic tango, resulting in a quirky blend of words and phrases. It's like Shakespeare and a French chef teamed up to create the ultimate language soufflé. Let's keep exploring. Now, let's focus on what happened from the 12th to the early 15th century. Picture this. It is the 12th century, and castles are popping up faster than daisies in springtime. We got knights in shining armor and damsels in distress. Troubadours are singing about courtly love, and suddenly everyone's using words like chivalry and courtesy. It's like the original romantic comedy, but with a touch of medieval flair. Speaking of romance, the 13th century was all about grand gestures and poetic declarations. Entered the age of courtly love, where knights composed sonnets and love letters more ornate than a dragon's treasure hoard. Imagine trying to woo someone with a 20-stanza poem. That's what I call dedication. It's like medieval Tinder, but with quill pens and wax seals. Now, fast forward to the 14th century, a time of bubonic plagues, peasants' revolts, and Geoffrey Chaucer. He was not your average poet, oh no. Geoffrey Chaucer was the Shakespeare of his time, the rap battle champ of rhymes, and the original master of ceremonies for medieval parties. He didn't just write letters, oh no. He crafted adventures with more twist than a knight juggling flaming swords. His Canterbury Tales were like the medieval version of Game of Thrones, minus the dragons but with an equal amount of drama and intrigue. The Canterbury Tales set a precedent for English literature. It was one of the first major works that was not written in Latin or French, making it accessible to a broader audience, and its popularity helped establish English as a respectable language for serious literature. All in all, Geoffrey Chaucer's work contributed to the standardization of English by influencing the dialect that would later become Standard English. It is the 15th century now. We got the invention of the printing press, and suddenly books are flying off the shelves faster than you can say Gutenberg. English is becoming more accessible, and people are reading tales of knights, witches, and heroic quests as if there is no tomorrow. Let's keep exploring. Now, let's focus on what happened from the late 15th to the 17th century. It's the late 15th century. The English language is blossoming with new words and phrases sprouting like daisies after the rain. It's like a linguistic renaissance, where everyone's suddenly talking in riddles and rhymes. Now, let's fast forward to the 16th century, the age of Tudor extravagance and William Shakespeare. Oh, good old Will, the bard with a quill, the playwright with a punchline. Shakespeare was a master of words, creating plays and sonnets that are as timeless as a funny cat meme on the internet. His language was so rich and powerful. It's like he ate a dictionary for breakfast and then would come up with new words like eyeball, elbow, or swagger, but all the time. Now, picture this. It is the early 17th century, and England is in a linguistic pickle. People are speaking all sorts of dialects, and understanding each other is as tricky as finding a needle in a haystack. But fear not, King James I, the language wizard of his time, decides it's high time to standardize English. And what better way to do it than with the Word of God? Enter the King James Bible, published in 1611, which is the ultimate bestseller of the 17th century. It's like the divine version of Harry Potter, except instead of wands, we have quills, and instead of spells, we have verses. King James assembles a team of scholars, and together they craft a masterpiece that's as epic as the parting of the Red Sea, or almost. Then we have the publication of the first English dictionary, an Universal Etymological English Dictionary, published in 1721 by Nathaniel Bailey. Bailey's dictionary was no ordinary dictionary, no. It was a linguistic carnival where words had parties and their meanings were disguises. Bailey didn't just define words, nope. He gave them life, personality, and sometimes a touch of his own peculiar humor. Imagine asking him for the meaning of umbrella, and he tell you, oh, it's a brolly for the drizzle. A true wordsmith. And here comes the time of Queen Elizabeth I. Grand voyages and pirate lingo. English sailors were sailing the high seas, encountering exotic lands and strange tongues. Suddenly, English was a melting pot of words from around the globe, making it the ultimate linguistic treasure hunt. Let's keep exploring. Now, let's focus on what happened from the late 18th to the 19th century. It is the 18th century now, the era of powdered wigs, tea parties, and the grandeur of Georgian England. But guess what? English is undergoing a makeover. Suddenly, fancy words like serendipity or gobbledygook are popping up like mushrooms after the rain. It's like the language is dressing up for a royal ball and everyone's invited to the vocabulary extravaganza. Oh, and speaking of tea parties, did you know that was a time when the term dish came to me in an attractive person? Yep, that's what I call elegance. Now, fast forward to the 19th century, the age of debates and daring discoveries. English is blooming like a literary garden, with authors like Jane Austen and Charles Dickens crafting tales of romance, mystery, and societal quirks. The language is evolving, taking on new expressions and idioms faster than ever. Did you know that the word groovy was first used in the 19th century to describe someone in a good mood? Yep. Back then, if you were cheerful and lively, you were groovy. It's like the 19th century version of being cool. Now, here comes the Industrial Revolution. With factories buzzing and trains chugging, English is getting a jolt of energy. New words like boilerplate or juggernaut enter the scene, describing the unstoppable force of progress. It's like the language is racing ahead, leaving behind a trail of exciting vocabulary. Last stop. Let's see what happened from the 20th century to the present. It is the swinging 20th century. Picture flapper dresses, gestunes, and the birth of slang that was as cool as a cucumber. Suddenly, words like jest or flapper are all in. It's like the whole world is speaking a secret language and everyone's invited to the Jessie Jamboree. Fast forward to the 1960s, the era of peace, love, and mind-boggling creativity. English takes a psychedelic trip with the Beatles, and suddenly fab, groovy, or far out become the hippiest words in the dictionary. It's like the whole world is on a magical mystery tour of language. Then there's the 1980s, the dawn of technology, neon spandex, and totally tubular vocabulary. Suddenly, computers enter the scene, and byte, mouse, or cyberspace become part of our everyday lingo. It's like we're all living in a high-tech sci-fi movie, and the language is catching up faster than you can say Control plus Alt plus Delete. Finally, welcome to the 21st century, where smartphones are smarter than us, and emojis are our preferred mode of communication. Selfie, hashtag, and emoji have become legit words in the Oxford Dictionary. I mean, who needs vowels when you can express your feelings with a smiley face, right? It's like we've entered the era of linguistic shorthand. Less typing, more emoji in, if you know what I mean. And there you have it, amigos. This wide ride from the first century to the present, filled with groovy slang, tech talk, and emoji magic, has come to an end. Como el teacher bilingüe que soy, el inglés representa mucho más que un simple idioma. Es una construcción social increíble y una hermosa criatura que emociona y apasiona. I really hope you enjoyed this time-traveling adventure that showed us the very inception of the English language and its marvelous evolution. Hey, thanks for watching. Adiós.